The People Not Titles podcast is brought to you by Land Trust Title Services, your partners for results. Well, hello, this is the People Not Titles podcast. I'm Steve Kaempf. I'm here with my partner, cohort, and colleague, Matt Lombardi. Matt, welcome. Glad to have you.
Good morning.
Coming off, go ahead.
Holiday weekend.
Yeah.
It's, what is it, September 3rd?
Yes.
Wednesday? Feels like a Tuesday.
Yes.
Hopefully everybody had a good weekend. We got a lot of stuff.
A lot of news. Once again. Matt, we are going to kick it off with 5 more signs of a rapidly deteriorating market. And let's talk about this, Matt.
Yeah, so this is a recent article from an online publication called Seeking Alpha, which is primarily focused on investments. But this was an interesting article because we've talked about a few of the bullet points. There's actually 5 points that are made here of sort of red flags, warning signs in the real estate market. And we try and keep things positive, but I think we want to keep it real too.
Matt, we got to keep it real. And remember, with every red flag, buried within it is opportunity.
There's always opportunity on the flip side.
Yes,
so, yes.
Absolutely. No real estate pun intended. Flip side.
I love it.
Matt, let's get into the points. Key point number 1, owning versus renting gap.
Right. So that first point that Steve just mentioned, the cost of owning a starter home these days is roughly now double the cost of renting that same house. So if you're on the fence of should I buy or rent, it's possibly that it's going to be cheaper for you to pay rent. Now, you're not building equity and all the other benefits of owning that property, but that's number one. And
Matt, if I may comment on this, and so someone there, when we talk about opportunity, investors make up about 28% of the market. And so now an investor thinks about it and says, ooh, there might be gold in them there hills. Let's talk about number 2, Matt.
Right. And so number 2 is home purchase cancellations have surged. And we recently talked about this, where there's 58,000 contracts that were canceled in the month of July 2025. And that's over 15% of pending sales, which is the highest amount since tracking began in 2017.
Matt, and what that tells us is that every broker, every mortgage person, every buyer and seller has to do more work to get to the same closing table. So that's interesting. FHA mortgage risk is number 3, Matt. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so this is a new point I think that we may not have been aware of, but FHA is a huge part of the real estate ecosystem. And there's about 7.8 million FHA mortgages right now that are outstanding, and the delinquency rates are about 11%. So that's number 1, and there's some policy changings coming up next month on October 1st that will tighten the FHA assistance program and what those people may be getting. And the possible outcome and prediction that this gentleman writes is delinquency rates could hit up to 25% by next year, potentially flooding the market with supply. And so I guess saying what you were saying, where there's issues, there's also opportunity from an investor standpoint. FHA-backed mortgages with homes, that could be a great investment opportunity if there's more homes hitting the market from the FHA.
Right, and I'm not sure, Matt, but I believe that most, if not all, FHA mortgages are assumable. And some of these mortgages might be at a low interest rate and might create opportunity. Let's talk about number 4, Matt. New versus existing home prices flip.
Yep, and I think last week, 2 weeks ago, we talked about this point exactly, which is now the average cost of a new home is now lower than the cost of an existing home on average. So that's the first time that that's happened since 2005.
Matt, an interesting point we brought up maybe a couple podcasts ago was how Warren Buffett might have prognosticated this when he was investing in those 2 home builders.
Yep.
So anyway.
Yep. So Lennar and D.H. Horton were the...
Thank you very much. Great memory, Matt. Number 5, builders offering heavy incentives. This kind of piggybacks on
Correct. So 66% of builders have used sales incentives in the month of July, which is the highest since the pandemic. New home inventory is at its highest since 2009. And new building permits have dropped to their lowest level since COVID. So those are the 5 things that point to warning signs that may be ahead. We're more opportunistic and positive in our outlook. But the housing, I like this, the closing thought is housing sector is deteriorating fast. I don't know if it's deteriorating fast. And if this trajectory continues, expect major impact on consumer confidence, the broader economy, and eventually the markets, which have yet to price the risk of a housing bust, which I would agree with.
Yeah.
The market tells all. The market is...
Trumps everything.
It trumps everything.
Matt, and there is good news in the Midwest, and we'll cover that in just a moment, but I thought this is great information. Waiting for mortgage rates to fall before you buy, don't bother. Okay?
Yeah,
They're saying this is a poor strategy.
Yeah, when you're looking at mortgage rates and you're finagling between 0.25%, 0.5%, and wondering, should I buy? I need to wait. And this is what the mindset is. And this is the psychological effect of what a mortgage rate is. And this article in the New York Times states, you don't need to wait before you buy. And there's some things you need to take into consideration.
What are the key takeaways of this?
Yeah, so according to Zillow, to afford a typical U.S. home, either home prices would need to drop 18% or mortgage rates would need to fall from 6.7% to about 4.4%.
Wow.
So balancing, and this is obviously across the country, but the senior economist at Zillow says says that's not realistic without an economic disruption.
It's not realistic that the home prices would drop,
right,
or that rates would drop like that without some major economic calamity. So when we're hoping, I hope prices drop so I can afford it. I hope rates drop so I can afford it. Actually, what you're hoping for is disruption, calamity, and then certain people are able to profit and certain others aren't.
Yeah, I think this next point is most telling. The typical U.S. mortgage payments are now nearly $1,000 higher per month than pre-pandemic, and most of our incomes have not risen that much. I know mine hasn't. I can't speak for you.
Yeah, we're just shoveling it in over here, Matt.
Right. And obviously in expensive markets like New York City, Los Angeles, Miami, San Francisco, homes will remain unaffordable to most of the median earners, even if rates drop to zero, because home prices have appreciated so much. Another point that we've made and stressed is for new home buyers, always take into consideration tax, insurance, maintenance, because in those cities, that can surpass 10% of your median income, which is unfortunate. And especially in certain parts of the country. The root issue, decades of underbuilding have created a housing shortage. Rates and prices alone will not fix it. And, there's affordable markets. There's a few that they point out here, Pittsburgh, St. Louis, Indianapolis. Homes would remain reach with median family incomes, even if mortgage rates climbed above to current levels.
Matt, and a lot of people, I've heard these stories, they decide, I'm going to move out of Chicago, I'm going to move out of these expensive areas and go somewhere else. Well, guess what? Those places pay less, there's less economic opportunity, less happening, and they wind up yearning for the days of being back into these major hubs and centers where the economy could be bubbling, flourishing, higher paying jobs, all that kind of thing.
I mean, when you reach a major metro area, whether it's Chicago, Milwaukee, St. Louis, I mean, those are city centers with a lot going on.
Absolutely, lots of options.
There's options, where you live matters when it comes to those things.
Absolutely. So, Matt, it sounds to me like if someone comes up with a solution for lower cost housing in these areas, it could be the opportunity. Matt, why buyers shouldn't count on a future refi to save money? I know there's a lot of loan officers and mortgage professionals out there. They're going to cringe when they hear us talking about this, but there is some truth in this, and so we thought it's important to cover, Matt.
Yeah, and the highlights of this is many buyers in today's market are banking on refinancing down the road to make their homes more affordable. And we say that. You can always refinance.
Absolutely.
Which makes sense. But a new study warns that strategy may not be as safe as it sounds, which is true.
Yeah.
And we're going to get into some details here, but that's what you say. You get your rate and you can always refinance down the road, but when you factor in all the things that go into refinancing, where do you recoup the savings?
Yeah, and how much does it need to drop? And Matt, I think I think the tenor of our advice in this, we're going to cover the data points, are that most people are waiting because they feel they're going to miss the lower rate.
Right.
Well, you never miss the lower rate because you can always take advantage of if the rate drops. But how far does it need to drop? What are the costs to do it and all that? Let's cover that.
Right. So some key points we're going to cover. Number one, refinancing isn't a guaranteed money saver, which I would agree with.
Yep.
Most 2025 home buyers would need 30-year mortgage rates to drop at least 75 basis points just to break even on refinancing costs within 3 years.
So if rates drop 3/4 of a point, you go, oh, I'm in the money now. No, you're not.
Right.
It'll take you 3 years after you refi to recoup your money.
Right. So you always take that into consideration when you're considering refinancing. What are the numbers? What is the break-even point? Do you need to remain in your home? And we're going to talk about that.
Man,
as well.
and we know that closing costs and interest rates, they function together. So someone might say, oh, but we're going to give you a no-cost refi, no money out of pocket. Number one, there's always money out of the pocket. Number two, that is just going to be reflected in your rate, probably a little bit of higher rate because those costs got to be built in. So,
and just from a personal standpoint, in our current home, which we have now lived this month 20 years.
wow. Congratulations,
Thank
Matt.
you.
Happy
Thank you.
anniversary.
As I was getting my catch basin cleaned out yesterday,
Yes.
it was fun to reminisce 20 years of.
Yeah.
But yeah, so anyway.
Yep. Matt, dating.
I'm sorry.
Where were you going with that?
Where I'm going with that is in our current house, I think we have refinanced 2 times, 3 times, because over that long haul, it just made sense.
Yep.
And the last refinance was at a tremendous rate, and I think at a 10-year note.
Beautiful.
So, you do what's right for you, but just take those things into consideration when you are looking at rates and what the cost savings will be.
Yeah, so what you're saying is over a 20-year period of time, you refied 2 or 3 times. Not every time rates dip 0.75%.
Right.
Matt, dating the rate is risky.
Right. So buying a home you can afford at today's rate while banking on a future refinance could definitely backfire if rates don't fall or if you qualify.
Yeah, Matt, and there's nothing like the stress and worry of hoping for things that are completely out of your control. Oh, I hope rates drop so I can finally afford it, so I can finally, afford to do whatever improvements.
Right.
No, that's not the play.
Right. Don't overbuy your house banking on a future rate cut that may not happen.
Absolutely.
And if you're struggling at the current rate, you shouldn't be in that position.
Very wise, Matt.
This point I think is very important. Refis should be a bonus and not the plan.
Yes.
Experts stress that refinancing could definitely be a useful tool, but it shouldn't be the cornerstone of a home buying strategy. When you're looking at the numbers and you want to buy that property, can you afford it at today's rates with all those things into consideration, which includes not just the mortgage, but taxes, insurance, maintenance, and everything else that goes with it?
Matt?
If the answer is no, reconsider that purchase because that rate may not go down.
Matt, there's nothing like laying your head on the pillow and falling asleep in a home that you can afford.
Absolutely. You don't want to be stressed. There's
Yes.
enough stresses with life and
Absolutely.
property ownership. And if you're going to stress month over month, we got to figure something out here.
Right.
Don't put yourself in that position.
Amen.
And here, waiting for a small dip may not help. A modest rate drop may take years to pay off, meaning buyers planning to stay in their house 3 to 5 plus years may be better off buying now than delaying. And the last point, obviously, where you live and where you're buying matters. So states with higher home prices like California, Hawaii, and Washington tend to offer greater refinance savings, while states like here in Illinois and the Chicago area don't offer that much because there's not the huge price variability with properties.
Absolutely. But Matt, we're going to get into now, why is
a good one.
Midwest real estate beating the rest of the country?
We love it here in the Midwest.
Oh my gosh.
Those on the East Coast and West Coast,
Fancy schmancy.
they fly over the Midwest.
Yep.
You guys are nothing but hicks and don't know anything.
Right. Bumpkins.
Chicago is the second city for a reason because New York was always number one with everything.
Right.
But the Midwest is the tortoise in the race, slow and steady. We never had wild variability with price adjustments. Even during the pandemic, things did go up, but not wildly like in Arizona, Texas, Florida, So we're slow and steady. And so this next article and what we're going to discuss showcases that, where the Midwest, which includes obviously Wisconsin, Chicago, Illinois, Indiana, Minneapolis, Ohio would be considered as part of here. So
let's talk about some key points, Matt.
Yeah, so some key points. And there was an example of a Lincoln Park, which is a neighborhood in Chicago, a condo selling for 13.5% above its listing price. If you read into the article, the realtor actually put a deadline and said, we want your highest and best offers by this date. And I think it was priced at $1 million, and they got $1 million.
Hey, thanks for listening to the People Not Titles podcast. We are brought to you by our great sponsors, Land Trust Title Services, your partners for results.
$1 million plus
Awesome.
On that one. Midwest has strength right now in that 8 of the top 15 markets for home price growth and 8 of the fastest selling markets in July were in the Midwest.
And Matt, in the Midwest also, believe it or not, in comparison to some of these high-end markets, the Midwest offers relative affordability. When people say, oh, it's so expensive here, try going to some of these other highfalutin places and you realize actually it's quite affordable to live here and raise a family.
There is, and especially when you take into the whole market area here in the Chicago region, you may not be able to live in the Gold Coast or Lincoln Park,
right,
because those properties tend to be significantly higher, but you can go out, you can go to other parts of the city and suburbs where you can still get, and I've seen them, $250,000 to $300,000 properties, decent shape. You may need to put a little elbow grease in there, but not bad for a starter home. And there still is the affordability for people who are willing to maybe not live in a Gold Coast or Lincoln Park, but
somewhere
in
else.
Arlington Heights or Schaumburg.
Absolutely. Matt, let's talk about the Chicago inventory squeeze. What is that?
So this we've highlighted where Illinois is down 68% from pre-pandemic levels. Chicago has 55% fewer homes for sale in July of 2025 compared to 2019. And so that keeps the competition high, as well as, buyers competing for these properties, which has led to, not inflated prices, but a steady, slight increase of median home prices.
So not, Matt, and then compared to Austin, where their inventory has exploded.
Right. So if you compare it to Austin, Texas, for example, their inventory is now 60% plus. We're at almost 60% less than 2019. So
amazing.
Maybe you can go to Austin and find a deal.
So that says stable demand, Matt. So Midwest homes continue selling quickly, unlike many markets, where listings are lingering 40 plus days. And we had, Matt, a slower pandemic run-up. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so the slower pandemic run-up, meaning, and we just talked about this, is Midwest prices didn't spike during COVID. They were a little higher, but not crazy high. And so there is still room for some sustainable growth right now.
And the Midwest is not overbuilt.
Right. The Midwest, for unfortunately not good right now, is during the pandemic, not a lot of new homes were built, and still not being built for that matter. Whereas the new home builders focused their attention during the pandemic in the Sun Belt states, in Florida,
where
in
everyone
Texas,
was rushing to.
Everybody wanted to go because they thought they would be living there forever and be able to remotely work for years to come.
Yeah, and Matt, we talked about that Midwest. There's economic and cultural hubs, great family life, great community life, multi-generational families building into the community. Very, very unique place. Okay, let's talk about mortgage rates, Matt.
Yeah, so what we're looking at right now is the affordability rates, and this is where the Midwest comes in. So the most affordable cities as part of this list in the Midwest would include Pittsburgh, St. Louis, Indianapolis, Detroit, Louisville, Cleveland, and Chicago. And as an example, the highest mortgage rate for affordability for the Chicago area is about 6.76%, which means at today's mortgage rates and median income levels and everything you factor in, Chicago is an affordable place to live.
Okay, and like for instance, Pittsburgh, rates could go up to almost 9%.
Correct.
And it would still be relatively affordable compared to some of the other markets, LA, Miami, New York, San Diego, San Francisco, San Jose, and on we go. So for instance, Boston, rates would have to go down to 0.8% for it to be as affordable as it is in Chicago right now.
Correct.
So this gives you an idea of the affordability. When people bellyache about Chicago's so expensive, I'm moving. Listen, this is the reality. These are the numbers, man.
Chicago's a huge city. I mean, drive around
Yes.
a little bit and it always blows me away. The footprint, I mean, there are many opportunities within this Chicago metro market.
All right, man, let's get into pending home sales report, which shows 0.4% decrease in July.
So NAR, their research department, which I know and love very well.
We have lauded long time.
Absolutely. And so this is monthly, they come out with the pending home sales report, which gives some data points. So national pending sales is down 0.4% month over month and 0.7% year over year, meaning it's relatively flat. As we've said on numerous podcasts, we wanted this year to be the breakout year, and it is unfortunately showing.
Not yet.
Right, it's coming.
Yeah.
It's coming.
Regional trends, Matt.
So regional trends, every region other than the West is down. So Northeast is down, Midwest is down 4%. West is up month over month 3.7%. And year over year, we got the Midwest is actually up just over 1% year over year.
Matt, market sentiment, the NAR confidence index, is this ever right, Matt?
It's a weird thing where they survey a subset of their members to get the feelings of positivity and negativity. So 16% of members expect more buyer traffic in the next month, next 3 months, and 21% expect more seller traffic. So that's up actually from last year.
Okay, so we have high expectations, and let's talk about our friend, NAR Chief Economist Lawrence Yun's insights. What does he say?
Well, he claims and says that buyers remain cautious despite slight improvements in affordability and inventory. Number two, mortgage applications are rising, which we've reported on consistently.
Absolutely.
Signaling more serious buyers in the pipeline. And we know you're waiting out there.
Absolutely.
Because you got to get in the right mindset that you feel good to buy.
Yep.
And then possible Fed rate cuts could expand the pool of eligible buyers. As we've reported, Jerome Powell said we may cut rates, and everybody heard we're going to cut rates in September. And so mortgage rates, we're not going to do a deep dive, but they have been, since that announcement, ticking down a little bit.
Matt, and so overall, I'm looking at this saying there's some positivity. Lawrence Yun is saying that he thinks there's going to be more people entering the market. We'll see. Howard Hanna Real Estate makes Georgia acquisition. Howard Hanna's constantly in the news. They're either going after Zillow or they're going after the MLS, were they?
They were going after Zillow and the MLS.
That's right, stealing my pictures.
Right. No,
that was a different one?
That was Zillow and CoStar fighting.
CoStar, thank you.
They were fighting over the pictures.
Yeah.
Howard Hanna, they were on the side of, hey, man, these are our listings.
Yes.
If we decide to pull them from the MLS, too bad. They're our listings. We don't necessarily need you. But don't feel like we have this love relationship with Howard Hanna Real Estate. We just find it interesting because they are a family-owned, now regional firm that just continues to acquire and expand.
Absolutely.
And so
who did they buy this time, man?
Their latest acquisition now brings them for the first time into the state of Georgia. They acquired Coastal Properties, which is an independent brokerage founded about 30 years ago. Adds about 160 agents. And like I said, is now in Georgia. This builds on their presence in South Carolina and North Carolina, which we reported on in the last week or two. And the CEO, Hobie Hanna, emphasizes deliberate strategic growth in markets with strong momentum and opportunities to connect with clients.
Matt, Hobie is a smart guy. And if they, it's just another positive sign to me that they're seeing opportunity in they're not divesting, they're investing. And so I think it's a good sign.
Yep. And industry experts note this reflects a larger consolidation trend, and we've reported on probably all of them.
Yep.
Among independent brokers where family-owned firms like Howard Hanna, Windermere, John L. Scott, and Baird & Warner are acquiring different companies in their marketplace. So The strong are going to get stronger, the weak are going to get gobbled up, and at the end of the day, there will be more consolidation each and every month in the marketplaces.
Matt, and you know, even the weak, or let's just call it the smaller, or those who have built a business that are now saying, hey, time for us to sell, time for us to join our competition. I think it's all good. Let's talk about National Housing Emergency Declaration, Matt. What is this about?
So this is, I think, maybe a close to breaking news story, but a very topical.
Something to watch.
Definitely something to watch. And there's a lot of stuff that comes out of the White House, but this one really perked up for us in the industry, where the administration, is specifically Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, says President Trump may declare a national housing emergency this fall, which would be the first time that's happened since 2008.
Yes.
And those of us that have been around remember what happened in 2008 when it wasn't a good time, and many people were hard hit in the marketplace. But times call for drastic measures sometimes. So this was in an interview, I think yesterday.
Matt, and I would say that one word is driving this. You know what that word is, Matt, in my impression? Affordability.
It is affordability.
Affordability is the word. And so this is what drive. Let's talk about the possible measures. What could this include, Matt?
So the administration threw some things out there, which could include cutting interest rates, obviously, tariff exemptions for construction materials, which I think would go a huge way with
Unleash
the new
builders.
Absolutely. Easing closing costs and moves to standardized zoning and building codes, which I think has the biggest impact.
Absolutely.
Because so many municipalities, and we've reported on this a few times, that using Chicago as an example, it is not easy to build and get the proper zoning that you need when you want to build something.
No, Matt, and it's been exposed. You had the fire in Hawaii, the fire in California. Excuse me, all these people had their houses burned down, and now they can't get zoning, building. The 2, 3, 4 years. You had flooding in the Appalachians. I don't know what the zoning is there, but that just reveals, you know, in a extreme circumstances, how difficult it is to get zoning and to build a home, and it would become too expensive for builders, too risky. Let's talk about the legal uncertainty of this, Matt.
Yeah, so this is just sort of the counterpoint. Like if you create this declaration and institute some things, the experts note that it's unclear if emergency powers can be used this way, but standardizing zoning could have the strongest long-term impact. So
there you go.
Very good.
Short-term boost, Matt.
You know, tax credits and easier home buying rules could provide some near-term relief, which is true. You know, there's no incentives from the government right now, which I know has happened over the years, where you get a first-time homebuyer credit or some tax savings. That's not on the table right now, but that could be put back on the table to spur first-time homebuyers. And then builders concerned, developers face higher borrowing costs, often 2 to 5% above the consumer mortgage rates, making financing new construction challenging. And I know we've talked about that before, that construction loans can sometimes be priced higher than a consumer loan.
So Matt, more to come on this, but the NAR and the National Association of Home Builders have kind of addressed this in unique ways. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so both NAR and the home builders obviously are huge lobbying groups. They're in tight with the current administration. I mean, they're in tight with every administration.
Yeah, they're trying to get in tight.
But they've really worked their way into this current administration, and I think have the ear of the policymakers. So that's a good thing for the industry.
And you have a guy like Pulte, like him or hate him, he's also in the mix there, really trying to advocate for home ownership.
So the Home Builders Association has pushed, they have a 10-point plan to reduce regulations and fix supply chain bottlenecks. And NAR stresses that the supply is the biggest barrier, with the U.S. short 4.7 million homes, and is calling for bold action.
Matt, so you have the home builders, you have the NAR, you have the administration. It seems to me like the stars are lining up for something to happen. We shall see.
And can you imagine if this September, they do not lower interest rates after the meeting? What would happen? Woo. The fireworks, the pain.
There's too much. You know, Matt, this is an 8-month buildup of so much pressure that finally, I think, you're going to see the Fed. My prediction, Matt, you ready for it?
I'm ready.
Besides a Bears victory on Monday night.
Ooh.
Okay, that's my prediction.
Okay, you heard it here
At
first.
at home. We already beat the Super Bowl champs in the last preseason
Is
game.
the trophy here yet?
The trophy, it's still, they're looking at tracking. It's, track your shipment. They're tracking the shipment. But Matt, there's been an 8-month pressure on this. I predict the Fed is going to cite some new things that they're realizing or whatever it is, and they're going to lower rates. But ultimately, it's been the trickle effect of this mounting pressure from the administration, from consumers, and from the housing market is going to force the hand here, but we'll see.
Yeah.
I could be right, and I could be wrong. I've been wrong
Steve,
before.
I believe your crystal ball is 100% right all the time.
Matt, and as we stand, a day after Labor Day or two, the Cubs are 5 games out. They're on a run right now. I predict wild card. I don't predict the division.
I do not think they have a chance in the division, especially with Milwaukee. Milwaukee is probably laughing, saying you could have Craig Counsell and paying him all that money. We're doing fine without him. But yeah, I think the Cubs have a definite shot at the wild card. They've been eking out victories here and there, 1-run game yesterday.
Don't want to underestimate them, but we just are satisfied with the division right now with this ball club.
And an announcement that the latest People Not Titles podcast dropped this morning, and that's featuring Alan Stern, who is a local guy, president of a company called Persona Marketing, huge on leveraging AI, but also all the free tools available out there for anybody to pick and choose and really brand yourself in a cost-effective way.
Absolutely. And if you haven't given a listen, a very popular podcast was our podcast with Andrew Holmes, the CEO of Chicago RIA, and the gentleman who runs and leads the Mastery program. Now is the time to get into the investment market in Chicagoland. And if you're going to do it, he's the guy to do it with.
Great resource, great interview.
Yeah, Matt, thanks a lot. People Not Titles podcast signing off. We'll see you next week.
See you next week.
Hey, thanks for listening to the People Not Titles podcast. We are proudly sponsored by Land Trust Title Services. If you enjoyed the podcast, please hit the like button. Please subscribe. And we'd love it if you'd share our podcast with your friends. Thanks a lot.